Greetings and welcome to another model building workshop. I'm Mr. Allen. I'm coming to you from the Smith Hill Library here in Providence, Rhode Island on behalf of the Community Libraries of Providence. And today we're going to look at this old Italeri kit of the, I'll just shorten this to Panzer 38T. And the T stands for Czechoslovakian. That's the abbreviation, because Czechoslovakian began with a T in German, so that's what that means. So this is a Czech tank that was in production and around before World War II, but when the Germans occupied Czechoslovakia in 1939, these all fell into the Germans' hands, and so did their factories. So they continued making these well into the war. So this is an old Italeri kit. Not sure which year this boxing was, but this had been around for a while, reissued over and over again, and is still around today. And here's a list of some of their other 135th kits on the back. Nice little catalog there with this packaging. So this is an old kit, and one thing I like about it, look at that. When you go to a model show, you can find some of these at some pretty good prices. Now, the old Italeri kits like this one are not necessarily up to the standards of some kits you might get today by some other model manufacturers, but they're still fun. Let's have a look. So here's the instructions. You can tell this has been sitting around a while. It's a bit yellowed. On the back, you have a breakdown of how to paint the crew figure, an explanation of the decals and markings that come with the kit, which is all here, which is rather handy. One thing that's fun about this model is that while it gives you the German options in the overall Panzer gray, but it does give you a Czech option, which is in a dark green, pre-World War II. So it gives you the parts breakdown here, and the typical Italeri versions of identifications for the triangle, circle, and square, as opposed to like A, B, and C that we're used to from other manufacturers. The instructions do get a bit busy with all these arrows and whatnot going on, but if you take your time, it's doable. I did build one of these as a teen when I was younger. It does mention, if you want to, you could use the heated screwdriver method to melt these pins down so that you can make these wheels operable. Now, I had done that when I built this and built the Hetzer model as well. And it depends on what you're up to, because this suspension system does allow a lot of movement. So if you wanted to do a diorama with this thing, going over some rough terrain, you could model it to do that, because it does allow quite a bit of flexibility there. The downside, though, is that you have the rubber band style tracks, and these are kind of poor, to be honest. These are not great. These are good for the time, for like the 70s, but I would recommend, again, it's up to you, depending how much money you want to put into this, some aftermarket tracks would probably benefit this kit quite a bit. So there's a lot of busy instruction arrows everywhere. The crew figure is pretty outdated. The detail is not good on the crew figure, but that's easy to find other ones nowadays. Sorts of tips and methods here. Again, melting the tracks, and then you get your decal and marking options here, which I think is interesting, because you have the Czech one here. You've got one that's got a winter whitewash and one in overall dark gray. But I did do some looking at these, and there were some of these tanks that were done up in the dark yellow with the red, brown, and olive green camouflage, and those are frequently used like against the partisans and things like that behind the lines, and in some cases they were actually mounted on flatbeds of trains and used as part of the armored train armament, or in some cases they would, could be used as scout vehicles for the armored trains. So it's not impossible to do this in a dark yellow camouflage with the various, oversprays. And another thing that was common with this tank, and I think this book here, this is kind of a fun book we have at the library. I think it's page 29. Give me one moment. It's a nice book. It gives you a quick overview of a lot of historical tanks. And here you have the 38T, an overall dark gray. But it does mention here that widely used by Germany's allies on the Eastern Front. And that's true, because a lot of countries like Hungary use these, Romania use these, and Bulgaria use these. So you've got some options if you really want to source some aftermarket decals and look at some various paint schemes. There are some available for this kit if you wanted to do that. So let's look at the parts. This is where the kit tends to show its age. The moldings are pretty good for the 1970s, but they're not really great by today's standards. There's also a lot of small pieces, and Italeri always liked having little small pieces and these little retaining rings and whatnot. That's always been an issue with them. Or not an issue if you like doing that. The rivet detail is okay, but and then you get all the wheels and all of those, again, little tiny retaining discs. All your suspension parts, there's lots of these. Another issue, depending how detail happy you are, is that the back of the road wheels, has no detail on the back at all. So that could give you nightmares if you don't like that fact, or just look at it from the front and pretend it's not there. Sinkhole marks don't seem to be too bad, and the stamping issues, yeah, they're not that bad. But anyway, like I said, there's plenty of other kits of this out there that are better detailed, but what I'm getting at is that a $5 hobby show table, this is a pretty good kit for that kind of price. Would I pay full price for this now? Maybe not. Decals, though they're old, they still look like they're in good shape. And I think they're interesting because you do get the check option, which is kind of cool. And it gives you a number of other Panzer divisions to work with. Some from like the Battle of France, some from the Battle of Russia, Barbarossa, and some even from Stalingrad, but it looks like the 14th Panzer divisions here. So, options. Here's your turret. Detail is kind of sparse. It's not terrible. I mean, it's dated. Let's just be honest. Yeah, and that figure, the gun being these two parts put together, I mean, that could be better. And the other thing I question is on the top of the hull here, I believe this should be a door for the crew. I think there's supposed to be a hatch there, which I don't think is on this. And I'm not sure, I haven't seen any schematics of the earliest versions if there wasn't the crew hatch, but everything I've seen implies that there was a crew hatch on the top of the hull, as well as the one on the top of the turret. So that's something, but every time I touch this kit, more parts fall off the sprues. So I'm trying to be really careful with that, because I don't want that to keep happening here. Because I'm planning on giving this to a teen that's got some good model building experience. This would be a good project for him. So that's a quick look at the Panzer 38T by Italeri. That's kind of a nice selling point. All right, and we'll see you next time on the next model building workshop. Take care.